morning or good afternoon. Hi, I'm Carol here from Sunset Learning Institute. Thank you, Robert, for joining us today. Welcome all. I'm here with Robert Locke, our specialist that will help us and share a little bit of his knowledge with us. I will launch a very quick poll here. You guys, please help me and Rob to also give us some insights for making a better session. I hope to see you all until the end. We have some promotions and some special things for you, okay? Rob, all yours. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Carol. As Carol said, I'm Rob Locke. I'm a senior learning architect with Red Hat training and certification here in North America. I've been working with Red Hat now for a little over 20 years. First got my Red Hat certified engineer way back in 2003. And so I'll have a couple of history questions for you all in a little bit. So hopefully you all are seeing the poll that's on there as to some information about what you might be doing with Red Hat Enterprise Linux or some of the Red Hat things that are there. So with that said, let me go ahead and jump in because I want to share some information about Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10, which was just released earlier this year. Um, and so, with Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10, this really culminates almost a quarter of a century of innovation that we've been doing with Linux. And what you'll find is in these waves that are shown at the bottom, is that the first period was really about a Unix to Linux migration that was happening, having parity with Unix. And it was during that period that we transitioned from Red Hat Linux to introducing our first version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which was version 2.1 there in 2002, right before I got my RHCE. But then we added other features to the platform that helped to make it a better enterprise solution. The next period or the next wave that we had was really about cloud and virtualization. We were looking at the invention of VMware, of OpenStack, of Amazon Web Services coming into being, and we wanted to be able to take this Linux technology and make it available on those platforms. This is when we introduced KVM in RHEL 5.4 and containers in RHEL 7 there in 2014. Um, Finally, the final wave, and this is really where we are now, is the era of artificial intelligence. I mean, let's face it, you can't really go to a technical presentation or see an ad on TV or on your streaming service that isn't somehow talking about AI. And so we have introduced a lot of changes to how we distribute Linux. There at the beginning of this wave, we created a more predictable release cadence with the introduction of Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. We started finding new ways to deploy out to the edge and manage across a hybrid cloud with RHEL 9. And so here, this year, we are introducing RHEL 10. Now, why do people take a look at Red Hat Enterprise Linux? Well, it's a very established and mature platform at this stage. I mean, we've been at this for over 25 years. And if you look at our marketplace penetration, if you will, we're in 100% of the Fortune Global 500 commercial banks, the telecom companies, the retail companies, the media tech companies, all of these. And we've got a massive partner ecosystem that really makes it all come together for us. So whether it's independent software vendors, hardware vendors, cloud providers, we are tied in where you need the help. But you know, as we were getting ready to build Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10 and take a look at what needed to be focused on, we found that there were some key market forces that really had been, well, I don't want to say ignored, but weren't at the forefront of our focus. And the biggest one, which, let's be honest, has been true forever, is the tight resource constraints that we're all under. So, what can we do to help to enable folks on deploying their technologies, their innovations within those environments, and be able to do that on that tightest of constraints? How do we accelerate cloud adoption and ensure that an implementation of a Linux-based solution in the cloud is as performant as it is on bare metal hardware within your own data center? I'd say one of the biggest areas, though, we have to be careful about is in security. I don't know if you have heard of this, but our parent company, IBM, has been very heavy into quantum computing. And quantum computing means that a lot of activities are happening in a much shorter period of time. We'll talk some more about this on a later slide, but quantum computers are probably the biggest security threat that we are all going to be facing. And then, of course, AI. How do we ensure that we're doing both predictive and generative AI and be able to roll that out across our enterprise in a sensible fashion? So, with those market forces, we boil down to lots of innovative capabilities. And so, these 5 items are what we're going to go through here in this hour and begin to see a little bit about how RHEL 10 is changing the way we're doing things. As this gray-haired sysadmin, I need to change some of my methods, some of the tooling that we have there for contained drift and accelerate delivery means really a change in mindset for me. And so it's exciting, it's interesting, but we're not throwing away the old way of doing things. So don't fear that. So I have a poll question here for you. When was the first version of Red Hat Enterprise Linux released? Was it RHEL 7.2 in 2001? Was it RHEL 2.1 in 2002? Was it RHEL 1.0 in 1999? Or was it RHEL 0.9, also dubbed the Halloween release in 1994? So think about that for a couple of moments. Which one do you think it is? Well, the answer is B. It is Red Hat Enterprise Linux 2.1 that was released in 2002. Now, A and D, RHEL 7.2 in 2001 was the basis for the Enterprise Linux release. But that was the precursor to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It was Red Hat Linux that we had beforehand. And the very first Red Hat Linux was the 0.9, the Halloween release, made available on October 31st, 1994. C is a made up figment of my imagination, never existed. But it's good to see some of you were guessing that correctly. All right, so let's dive into those 5 areas that we showed earlier of the changes to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And the first area or first challenge is how do we address the Linux skills gap? I mean, let's admit, Linux requires a certain amount of skill to administer and implement. And Red Hat has been working to make RHEL easier to deploy and manage for decades. But in that time, what we have also done is built a wealth of knowledge around Linux. And so now what we're looking to do here is to put that knowledge that we've accumulated and put it at your fingertips when you need it most. And so we're doing this in RHEL, all right, with something called RHEL Lightspeed. The goal here is to combine all of that knowledge and expertise with some AI technologies. that will help inform and simplify how you build, deploy, and manage RHEL. To be more specific, the new RHEL command line assistant, powered by RHEL Lightspeed, is now available in RHEL 10 and gives users the ability to interact with RHEL by simply typing an English question directly on the command line to receive answers with recommendations and actionable guidance. It's really that simple. And this gives newer Linux administrators the ability to quickly perform more complex tasks. But it also gives veteran administrators like myself the ability to do that work even faster. So, with RHEL Lightspeed, we are looking to unlock that 25 years of Linux expertise for our users. The generative AI is the major advantage here. We're able to take this vast amount of data and make it consumable for users at their point of need. We want to make this knowledge more transparent and accessible to the user and provide proactive guidance as they're making decisions at build time. We also want to help them level up their skills. So here's a quick example of this. We're trying to use journal control in RHEL, which, to be honest, is a cryptic command with numerous sub-options. Frankly, I'm still a tail guy, using the tail command to take a look at my log files. Journal control is something that I've been trying to get, a little more adept at using. So if you're not experienced with RHEL, or you're an old guy like me that not sure about the new tool, we can run a command called C. You see here in the first red box. And C stands for Command Line Assistant. And what we've put into quotes saying, help me troubleshoot SSHD failing to start. Of course, the Command Line Assistant is quite polite, showing empathy to me, saying, I'm sorry to hear that you're having trouble with the SSHD service not starting. Here are some steps you can take to troubleshoot this issue. And so it suggests using system control status, but more specifically, it shows me a command with journal control where I can filter those hundreds and thousands of messages down to just the ones related to SSHD. So this will show the logs related to that service, which may provide more information about the issue. So with RHEL Lightspeed and the command line assistant, you can see how much easier and nicer it is to interact with RHEL. Actually, another use of the command line assistant, which I'll admit is probably my favorite one, is that it can be the recipient of input. Have you worked with pipes in Linux? This is where you can take the output of one command and redirect it as input to a second command. And so I can make the command line assistant be that second command, and I could pipe, say, the log output into that command line assistant. So, for example, I could cat something like var log messages, pipe it into C, look for critical errors in this log file. And it will then filter and show me just those critical errors. I could even put some more to that query, to that conversation I'm having with the AI, and have it diagnose some of that for me. Now, another way we're looking to improve on our management of our systems and to help to accelerate that innovation is to look at automation and management. In particular, we have a new RHEL image builder. It provides a similar user interface that closely matches Insight's image builder if you've used that. It provides new customization options and new integrations with Insight services such as compliance and content templates. So this will allow us to share blueprints between RHEL and Insight's image builders, and make for a more consistent deployment. In fact, we introduced this with RHEL 9 as a tech preview and began doing it a little bit with that. But with the introduction of RHEL 10 and its companion, RHEL 9.6, this has now become a full feature supported feature for us. The other one is we've made a lot of improvements to the web console as another way to administer systems. So you don't always have to remote SSH into the thing. We can use the web console in a more web app type of point and click interface to manage some of our systems. And then finally, system roles. For example, we can deploy and manage the advanced intrusion detection environment at scale with a new aid system role. So we can use Ansible Core, Ansible Automation Platform to go ahead and roll a lot of these features out. Now, what about containing drift as sort of a second challenge for us? Systems management is all about delivering systems quickly and then mitigating drift from that moment. RHEL 10 has features to help us solve both of these problems. So, this is the challenge with drift. With image mode for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we can speed time to market. We can streamline our operations, enhance security. See, this really is a different way of deploying to our systems. With image mode, you want to think about it more like your cell phone. What happens when you get an update to your cell phone? It downloads that updates, makes some adjustments, and then you reboot. Well, same sort of philosophy here with image mode. And the beauty with image mode is if we roll out a bad update, it's a simple reboot that takes us back to the previous iteration, as opposed to the file or package mode that many of us are using, where there's a ton of files that we've got to fight with. I want it to work like my smartphone, was the statement we got from one of our customers. There was a lot of pain over all of these security vulnerabilities that were coming out. I wanted to be able to build images with a smaller footprint rather than having a big, large environment, which then has much more areas of attack. I want to be able to enhance the security and harden the platform as it rolls out, not as some post-deployment strategy. I want to be able to quickly turn these things around. The whole concept of configuration or infrastructure as code, I want to build that in. So, traditionally, the way you and I have deployed Red Hat Enterprise Linux is what we are now dubbing package mode. In package mode, we are deploying files. And so we're doing updates through a facility known as RPM. Admittedly, we might be front-ending that with Red Hat Network and Satellite, or yum commands or DNF commands to be able to roll those updates out. But what it's ultimately doing is making individual file changes to the system. We've spent a bit of time in our Linux world talking about containers and this idea of having small specialized containers with a universal base image underneath that just runs that one app, isolates that app, secures that app, and when we want to make updates, we simply roll out a new version of that smaller app. So how do we marry what we have learned about with containers and apply that to the operating system? And so that's image mode. Being able to roll out an image of the base operating system rather than a bunch of individual files. Much more efficient. Also tends to keep more things read-only. So there's less drift, less changes happening. I mean, if I'm rolling out updates in the old package mode to 1,000 systems, the reality is there's going to be some small number that's going to fail, right? I mean, invariably that happens. And so, with that, what do? On those few systems that fail, you manually go in and you make the adjustments. But now those systems are different than the 900 plus that you had rolled the updates out to. With image mode, it's the same image on every single system. No more drift being allowed. Our image-based methodology called image mode for RHEL is the exact same thing, but it's for operating system updates. You take all of the files that are in the operating system and we're packaging them up into a single image and deploying that across your fleet. Now, the target might be a virtual image running in the cloud. It might be going off to bare metal within your data center. Or another interesting place is, what about at the edge? As you are deploying and pushing these images out to these small devices, think cell towers. I can deploy it out to those cell towers. Or think about your operating system that's running in your car. We can push out an image there. So it's that consistency, no drift. Now, to deploy image mode, much like we showed the command line assistant earlier, this is how you build it. You can see the workflow is really very similar that you would expect from a standard application container. A lot of the same sort of constructs here of how you would do that to build your containers. In fact, we use the same tooling. You can use Podman to go ahead and build this from a file that you have. It can be pulling from, centralized repositories. You ultimately upload them into those centralized repositories, and so you can start applying more control with those pipelines. We've got a flexible choice of management. Red Hat Insights, your online, tied into the Red Hat network, can be scanned. Your image mode systems can be scanned for security and operational recommendations and updates that you want to make to those images. You can then go into your Git repository, make your adjustments, apply those updates, and then schedule the rollout. In fact, you can even configure systems to automatically poll the central hub to find out, oh, is there a newer version? Yeah, let's go ahead and download it. Red Hat Satellite. With the introduction of RHEL 10, we also released Red Hat Satellite 6.17, which is now supporting image mode for provisioning and client management across your environment. And of course, we have a boot C collection for bootable container. We have a boot C collection for Ansible automation platform. So here you can leverage your preferred management system to register and onboard image mode using the tools that you're already comfortable with. All right, our third challenge area. How do we make better decisions at build time? Well, the reality is there's a lot of stuff. It would be really helpful, for example, to know if a Linux package I'm about to add is no longer supported, or is there a newer version? Or it's typically installed with other packages. Of course, knowing this up front would be a lot helpful. This is the whole concept of shift left, being able to know this information before we deploy. And we don't have to make the patches after the fact. So, with this release, Insight's Image Builder users can now make smarter decisions at build time with this new ability to proactively receive package recommendations powered by RHEL Lightspeed based on their selections. Through insights, I can actually take a look at my system and go through and see, well, which things on here have been deprecated. It's all information that we at Red Hat have published over the time. All right. But it's been hard to collect all that information because it's been published in a lot of different places. What we're doing is we are consolidating that roadmap. So now you know what we're planning to do, which components are being deprecated. I'll give you a classic example. I was having a discussion with an instructor friend of mine about network configuration files. If you're familiar with doing configuration on RHEL for a long time, you're used to IFCFG files existing on the system. And, a bunch of years ago, Red Hat introduced for us Network Manager. And we all looked at it and we went, oh, that's a thing for workstation people. That's not something I'm going to need on my servers or have to figure out how that's done on servers. This concept of network connections rather than devices alone. And so now we move forward, RHEL 8, RHEL 9, we're telling you if CFG files are going away. All right. We've been telling you for a few versions. Now in RHEL 10, they're gone. Okay. So the if CFG files are not available to us. All of some of those network tools that we use to launch these also not there. So being able to have that roadmap information in one central place and to be able to get warnings about things that are going to be affected by you upgrading to that newer version or what's going to be happening. All right. So no longer is all that homework of collecting all that information and figuring it all out on you. It's now being provided in a wonderful central place. For example, here's a screenshot of what this might look like. And so off on this particular system, we're looking at a few of the app streams. And we see one of the things that's been deployed, Node.js 16. We dropped support for that a while ago. All right. And so you should be on Node.js 20. Or maybe even in the future, we've got an upcoming release of Node.js 22. Would be a better choice. So you understand where you are in the life cycle of these things. And then you see something like Ruby, where Ruby 3.0 has a nice big long life cycle, but we have app streams for Ruby 3.1, Ruby 3.2, Ruby 3.3 that you can go and see some support for those in smaller windows. But there you're in a more development cycle and you want to be moving forward. So going forward, we're capturing all of this information in a digital roadmap so that you can look at future versions of RHEL and see what's coming. Insights Image Builder can also make those package recommendations. And so, for example, if you're building an image on console.redhat.com, which is the Insights Image Builder, we can see what packages you're selecting and then make a recommendation for other relevant package. Just as an example, if you're installing Kerberos, we might suggest the Active Directory enrollment tool because our data from all of our customers suggests that most people also select that package eventually, all right, because they need to tie in, all right, Kerberos into their Active Directory implementations. So, wouldn't you love to have a second set of eyes looking over your shoulder and helping you to make some of those better decisions up front? Compliance hardening for this image mode, much easier to implement. RHEL 10 improves security practices because you're implementing a DevSecOps framework, shifting security left, and introducing an optimized process for deploying your RHEL images during the build phase, not post-deployment. All right, so we can combine those security elements up front. We even have a way to, if you're running identity management, we can save time, improve security by leveraging a domain join option. So instead of doing that manual process of adding the system into the domain, we can automate that process for you. We also have specific pre-built images that you can use as a starting point that you can then customize that have been optimized for specific hyperscalers. And so there is an image of RHEL for AWS, one for Azure, one for Google Cloud, one for, whoever you want to name. Odds are we've got an optimized one for that hyperscaler. So how do we contain drift? How do we optimize your deployment strategies? Now, security. This was one, a little earlier I said is something we're going to have to start worrying about. For those that aren't already aware, post-quantum cryptography is a major security threat. It's looming on the horizon, and the ability to protect your information after these powerful quantum computers become available to hackers is a real concern. It's not about individual, running in their basement or their garage, that sort of thing. What I'm worried about are nation states building their own quantum computers and, sort of tying in and getting access to our information. To give you some perspective, according to Forbes, a 2020 era computer would require 300 trillion years to break today's RSA 2048 encryption standard. A quantum computer will break it in 10 seconds. So it's not that encryption is perfect. It's not that encryption is fully safeguarding your information. It's that it's just unrealistic for a brute force attack and figuring out is going to work. I mean, 300 trillion years, I'm not too concerned about my data. But a quantum computer doing it in 10 seconds, that's concerning. So we are now preparing you for this. What we would talk about is sort of the transition phases that are happening here. The shift is going to require us to be planning and doing stuff throughout the next several years. Most of us are in that classical category. We're using traditional cryptography. None of the algorithms are quantum resistant. With Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10, if you deploy that, we are making you post-quantum capable. It includes the available quantum-resistant algorithms, the QRAs, that are available to implement a post-quantum world. Now, it's not available for all applications yet. Still classical by default for most configurations like OpenSSL or something like that. Now, as we shift to being post-quantum ready, well, then those classical configurations will default to using the quantum-resistant algorithms. And once we get to PQ ready, then we can start to deprecate and remove those classical algorithms. So there's a transition that's going to need to happen here, but it's one you're going to have to start keeping an eye on. And RHEL 10, we are preparing you for this. We are releasing and making available to you those quantum resistant algorithms that we have so far. And I will tell you the government standards around this are going to be changing and going to be evolving and telling you what you need to implement to be compliant. Another thing with RHEL 10 is that we're reinvigorating this idea of secure by design. All of that shift left stuff I was talking about earlier, this is all about us building security in at the start. As we all start to move to more of a concept of infrastructure as code, configuration as code, this means that we are thinking in terms of automation, we are thinking in terms of security, we are thinking in terms of a streamlined, non-driftable environment. It's not an afterthought. Now, post-quantum cryptography is going to be part of those compliance mandates. As I was talking about, these government standards are all going to be updated. And here's a current state for many of them. They're encouraging transitioning. They're going to be able to specify over the coming years some specific implementations. And we even have some mandatory definitions already. All right. Quantum computers represent a threat to our encrypted traffic. Post-quantum cryptography is a mature standard and already included in FIPS for remediating that threat. Do you think this is true or false? Wow, you guys are really on top of it. All right. Yes, absolutely. It's false because it's still evolving. The standards are still being written. And so we all just have to keep monitoring. We have to keep, vigilant about working with this stuff. All right. Another challenge area, another market force, of course, is leveraging RHEL as a trusted platform for AI. Um, to begin, please know that Red Hat has developed an optimized version of RHEL that is called RHEL AI that has been specifically built to run AI models. And it's part of our Red Hat AI portfolio. Now, as the foundation, RHEL plays a crucial role in RHEL AI to leverage new advances faster with safety and trust and with the support of our vast partner ecosystem. This safety and trust that RHEL is known for is extended thanks to our new partner validation program, which accelerates the time to market for the latest AI hardware and software. Plus, we're excited to announce a new extensions repository that will list the latest community content that is trusted by Red Hat. So, we've added new capabilities such as image mode for streamlined deployment and updates using pre-configured container images. Additionally, confidential computing capabilities have been added that enables organizations to leverage their AI data in a secure and isolated manner so that you're not feeding into those models that your competitors are using. Plus, RHEL 10 is going to include the option to integrate with a Postgres vector database for improved accuracy for your generative AI, and a model context protocol is planned, which is an open standard that enables AI models to seamlessly integrate with external data sources and tools. So, of course, RHEL is the base for RHEL AI, continuing our 30-year history of being a trusted foundation, but it's also an important investment for our company and customers. Um, RHEL 10 has new capabilities that have been added to support all of this, and we're going to continue moving all of this forward. In fact, RHEL AI instances are included as part of OpenShift AI, because how are you going to manage these deployments and these larger models that you are building across multiple systems? Now, where are we putting those AI workloads? Well, organizations need to keep up with the ever increasing speed of innovation and customer demand. So, new with RHEL 10, our cloud optimized RHEL offerings provide us a nice leading Linux OS with built in cloud provider specific configurations that ensure the performance, integration, and observability of your cloud based workloads. So you can focus on your initiatives that move your business forward rather than spending time on your operational functions. So that gives us an idea as to some of the market forces and things we've been going through. I should probably give you a quick laundry list of some other things that you may be aware of or may surprise you. Some other notable features that have come into play. Um, Red Hat Satellite 6.17 has introduced, as I've already mentioned, support for image mode. And so we're able to do provisioning in a new way, working off of a registry rather than strictly in package mode. Another one is support for Flatpaks. Flatpaks is a new method of deployment of applications. Traditionally, we've had application services. You want to run a web server instance, you want to run a database server instance, you want to run some other cloud native application infrastructure piece. Those are traditional containers that we have built. Image mode is us taking that container knowledge and applying it to OSs. But the third piece to this is, what about front end applications? What about me installing a version of a graphics application so that I can make pretty pictures? That's where Flatpak comes in. So we are now looking at deploying desktop applications in a sandboxed container out to your desktops. Now, much like Network Manager, oh, that's just a graphical desktop thing, and I don't do Linux with that, so that's never going to affect me. Yeah, it's affected you. So pay attention to Flatpaks. It's another way of containerizing. Everything's becoming a container now. Small, easy compartments that we can move around in our enterprises. Secure boot support has been enhanced, IPv6 support, but another interesting piece for me with Satellite 617 is I've been talking about Red Hat Insights, for a couple of versions of RHEL and some of the great information I'm getting, but I have to be connected to the internet with my RHEL systems in order to get that information. We are taking the Insights Advisor, which is one of the great benefits of Insights, and we are bringing that to Satellite so that Satellite, which manages your disconnected RHEL systems, can now provide you with that same advice. All right. We have other pieces put on here, whether it be different previews, the extensions repository, the partner validation program, as I mentioned earlier, getting that AI new hardware supported much quicker and certified much sooner. Newer versions of various applications have been introduced with RHEL 10. For those of you that are wanting to stay on RHEL 9, as long as you move up to RHEL 9.6, you can get these same versions through application streams. Now, as with adding a bunch of stuff, there's always stuff that we remove, right? One of the biggest things to warn you about is with RHEL 10, 32-bit support generally goes away. And we are being sure that you are running a 64-bit instruction set that's been around for years. All right, this is not some new instruction set. So if you have Haswell or greater Intel CPUs or Excavator or greater AMD CPUs, these are, 10 years old, those processors. So V3 has been around for a long time. Where we are seeing some complications for customers, we will admit, is that not all Atom processors, even some recent ones, are not V3 compliant. So if you are using some of those ARM processors, do double check that they're V3 compliant. Now, if you're concerned about a 32-bit application that you've been running for the last 20 years, all right, and you want to still run it on a recent RHEL, that's what containers are for. Run the service, run the application in a container. You can make it happen. So, while we've removed the support from a traditional deployment and a file-based deployment, you can still hide your 32-bit stuff in a container. All right. Some other things have disappeared. Xorg, as the underlying graphical environment, is gone. We are now strictly Wayland based. This does mean a few other things. So if you have certain older X apps, you will need to do some extra testing to make sure that some of the Wayland to X libraries will be able to support that for you. VNC has disappeared. Most everybody is now using the remote desktop protocol rather than VNC. OpenSCAP is being worked on. It's just we're in a transition period because it relied on SCAP Workbench, relied on GTK2, which is gone, removed with Xorg. We need to do some updates there. And Tomcat, it's back. So it's now included with RHEL. We had removed it back in RHEL 8, but we heard you, and we have put it back in. Networking, the DHCP server has shifted. This is just part of the open source community. So the ISC DHCP server, ISC themselves, are now deploying and putting out Kia DHCP as the open source project. So we've made that shift. But that does require some configuration changes if you are doing a DHCP server on RHEL. IP tables, we deprecated back in RHEL 8. We had hoped to remove it in RHEL 10. We didn't quite yet, but no, it's coming. All right, so just remember, IP tables gone. It's now NF tables that's being used, or frankly, you should use the network manager front end or the firewall CMD command and firewall daemon as your front end to that. All right, so the new features that we focused on, image mode, a new way of building and deploying RHEL. Originally introduced in RHEL 9.4 as a tech preview, just about a little over a year ago. It is now a fully supported feature, and we think is probably a way a lot of us are going to shift and do things. RHEL Lightspeed Command Line Assistant is an AI augmented assistant that you can do at the command line. It's a RAG model with Watson X. No additional licensing needed. It's all included with your RHEL 10 subscription. We have post-quantum encryption capable technologies being available to defend our data against that looming threat of quantum computing. And fourth is we're bringing Insights Advisor to satellite so that users that are disconnected, isolated environments can still be getting that great advice. Now, this does lead me to a reminder of, well, what is our product life cycle with RHEL? And remember that we started this with RHEL 8. Every 3 years, we are coming out with a major new version of RHEL. And so we've released RHEL 10 this past May. RHEL 9 was 3 years before that. RHEL 8 was 3 years before that. But one of the things we do is we provide full support for a version for 5 years. So what you will see is point releases being released about every 6 months. And so 3 years ago was RHEL 9, so that's why 9.6 came out. We'll have a 9.7, a 9.8, a 9.9, but then 9.10 will probably be the last RHEL 9 minor version being released. Once RHEL 9.10 is released, it shifts to maintenance support. And the difference here is in maintenance support, we may not adjust or release or make any kind of big changes to this. Security, yeah, we're going to do security. All right, those alerts and that sort of stuff, you'll get updates there. But in terms of new hardware support, new features, that sort of thing. That's not going to happen during maintenance support. And be aware, that's where RHEL 8 is right now. After 10-year life cycle, we will offer at an additional cost an extended life phase for some ongoing support for a couple of years beyond that. That's where RHEL 7 is now. So here's RHEL 7. We promised full support for the 5 years, went into maintenance support. We had two different levels of maintenance support back in those days. Maintenance support 1 went for a year. Maintenance support 2 went for about 3.5 years because the full support went a little longer than 5. But we're now in the extended life phase for RHEL 7. So if you're still running RHEL 7, I really hope you've got some plans for moving forward. So full support of Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10 is going to last for how long? My last of my poll questions. And excellent. Yes, 5 years is full support. Then we have another 5 years of maintenance support. So you've got a good 10-year window of working with it, but full support ends after 5 years. So how do I get up to speed on Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10? How can I get my hands on Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10? Well, we know that skilled people are the key to successful digital transformation. And so we believe that one of the benefits of signing up for and going into training is how you're going to be able to understand the platform and the environment that you're deploying. It helps you to reduce your risk exposure. There's actually a link to a study that was done by ESG, Enterprise Strategy Group, last year that identifies and puts a bunch of numbers into this. Now, we offer our training in multiple different ways. We have live scheduled instructor-led training available on an open enrollment schedule that Sunset can get you enrolled for. They can also, if you have a group of people that want to get trained, they can help you put together a private group delivery out to your organization. But those are instructor-led. It'll be a defined schedule, either through the open schedule or your own schedule if you're doing a private delivery. We also have self-paced offerings where you can learn on your own schedule. You can purchase a class, an individual self-paced course. You'll have 90 days of access to that course content, along with videos of one of our better instructors going through and delivering that content to you as if you were in class, those videos. And you'll have 80 hours of hands-on labs. So we have an online lab environment where you can go ahead and practice, and I'd say a good 40 to 50% of the content in these courses, whether they're instructor-led or on your schedule, is hands-on activities going through. You also have access to the Red Hat Learning subscription, 1 year, unlimited access to every single course that we offer. And then there's RHLS Premium, which is sort of the hybrid. You get the full access with RHLS to everything over there, every course, but then you can register for little half-day snippets of a live instructor delivering a prescribed component from a course. Now, with Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10, we have introduced, again, an updater course. So if you're already a Red Hat certified system administrator, or you've been working with RHEL 8 and RHEL 9 forever and ever, and you're sitting here going, well, I do need to figure out what this Flatpak thing is, and image mode is sounding interesting, and want to get my hands on that, and, touching a little bit of that command line assistant might be fun. That's what we've got in this new features course. It's a 2-day class that has been put together, so about 16 hours of content that'll give you hands-on for all of that. It was premiered at Red Hat Summit this past May, and we had a bunch of students going through that particular course. and it went rather well. That was our first RHEL 10 course to release. But as you might expect, we have also introduced updates to our Red Hat System Administration 1, Red Hat System Administration 2, the RHCSA Rapid Track, and the RHCSA exam. All now have RHEL 10 versions available for us. Now, for those of you that might be in the midst of doing the RHEL 9 version of one of those courses, don't worry. You still got time to take EX200 on RHEL 9. We're not removing that already. Typically, we'll keep the old versions around for about a year for you to be able to finish up your journey on the same version that you started with. Or you can jump to the new version. Totally up to you as to what you'd like to do. So those have all been updated, and then we'll gradually update some of the other classes to be working with RHEL 10. So RHEL, it is one platform with unlimited possibilities. And so what I like to do is open up if I haven't seen any chats or Q&As come in. Does anybody have any questions before I turn this back to Carol, who's going to sort of wrap things up for us? All right. Well, let me go ahead and turn it back over to Carol to take us home.
Thank you, Rob, so much. Thank you so much for our session today. Thank you all for joining us. As Rob said, we have this course. I shared here in the chat. I was going to screen share, but since Rob already passed it through everything, so I don't need to screen share anymore. So we do have these new features in Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We are offering 15% off just for the people that are here in our webinar. So I just shared the code for the discount. It's valid until September 30. We do have some guaranteed to run dates I will share here too. You will find the link in the chat. And also, if you are interested on these Red Hat learning subscriptions that Rob also shared with us too, you will find the link on the chat. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us. Rob left also his some other links that are very helpful too. Rob, thank you so much. And I hope that you all enjoyed our session.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.